Welcome to Miss Taylor's Class Notes, and today we're going to talk about a new form of a line, which is our point-slope form. And we call it point-slope because they give us a point and they give us the slope. And if they give us a point and a slope, then we can graph it. And if we can graph it, then we're good to go. So the first thing that we need to talk about is we need to talk about y and x. These are variables. They never change. Those are always going to be the letters y and x. We're never going to put a number there. So the next thing that we need to talk about is our m, and our m is our slope. That's the same thing. Nothing really changes there. What's really different is this right here. So y1 is going to be our y point or our y value of our point, and we're going to have to flip the sign. This is the hardest, let's spell sign right. This is the hardest thing to remember about point slope, but because the negative is in there, that's what tells us we have to flip the sign. Same thing with our negative x1. This is our x point, and we have to flip the sign. And this is the hardest, that's an H, not an M. This is the hardest thing to remember is to flip the sign. And again, the negative is the thing that tells me to flip the sign. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how can we write an equation in point slope form. So we always have our x first, then we have our y, and we have to remember to flip the sign. And then we have our slope is our m. So we have y, and then we need to flip the sign of our 3 because our 3 is positive. We're going to put a negative. Then we're going to write our equal sign. The next thing we're going to write is our slope, which is 3 over 2. Then we're going to write our parentheses x. And because we have a negative 2, we're going to flip the negative to a positive. And so this is our answer. So we're going to do the same thing. We need our y, we need our m, and we need our x. So we've got to remember to flip the signs. So we're going to put y something equals slope x something. It's a lot easier for me to write all that stuff out first. So I need to flip this. Oh, my y is supposed to be red. So I need to flip the sign of the negative 5 so it becomes positive. Then I need to put my slope, which is 1/2. And then I need to flip the sign of my x because it is a positive. We're going to make it a negative. So with this next one, as soon as I see that the slope is 0, I automatically know that it's a hoy. I know that hoy are y equals, and so I'm going to take my y point, and it's going to be y equals -6. We don't need to put it in point slope form. We know that that is our equation. So let's look at our last one where we just need to put it. Actually, no, I lied. This one is already in point slope form. So I'm going to rewrite point slope form. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So our slope is still the letter m, so our slope is going to be 5. We need to remember that we need to flip our signs, and so our y, instead of being a positive 3, is a negative 3, and our x, instead of being a negative 4, is a positive 4. So our point is 4, -3, and our slope is 5. So again, when I see it in point slope form, y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So our slope is our m. Our rate of change is the same thing as our m or our slope. So we know our rate of change is 3 over 4. We look at our y value. We've always got to remember to flip the sign. So our y becomes a positive 4. And then we look at our x value. We've got to flip the sign so it becomes a -4. I want you to try this one on your own and check with the completed class notes. All right, so now we're going to talk about how we graph using point-slope form. And let me get my pencil ready to make it easier for me to graph and you guys to see what I'm graphing. So when we are graphing, we need to first find our point like we were just doing. So I'm going to find my slope, which is 3/4. If it's positive, I'm going to go up and to the right. And now we need to find our point. So we need to flip our sign. So our y becomes a +4. And then we need to flip our sign. Our x becomes a -4. So we do not know where the y-intercept is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plot this point I was given. -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I can simply just use my slope. I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just like to draw 3 points because it makes it easier for me to draw a straight line. And I like to draw straight lines as much as humanly possible. And so that right there is our equation of a line. So we want to find our slope. Our slope is what's in front of the x, which is 5. And remember, we change it to 5/1. We're going to go up 5 because it's positive and to the right 1. Now we need to find our point. We always have to flip our sign, so the y becomes a -3. Since the x is -4, we flip it to a +4. So I'm going to graph my point first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And we go down 3. And now for my slope, I need to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 to the right. I got my 3 dots. Now that I got my 3 dots, it makes it super easy to draw a mostly straight line. And there you have it. That's our line. All right, what I want you to do is I want you to graph these two on your own. Now for this one, I know that 11 is not going to be on our graph. Just do the best you can and put it about right. Oh, come on. Put it about right there, just about 1 point above. But graph these two on your own and check with the completed class notes. All right, we got one last thing we need to talk about in this video, and this is how to go from point-slope form into slope-intercept form. So the first thing that we're going to do on point-slope form is we are going to distribute. Parentheses always tell us to multiply, and we want to simplify our fractions if at all possible. And the next step is we just simply need to add or subtract the number next to y. So step 1, I'm going to distribute the number outside the parentheses and multiply it by everything inside the parentheses. The thing we need to remember is that our number in front of x is that invisible 1. So I'm going to rewrite the first half of my equation. 3/4 times 1 is simply 3/4, and I'm going to write down the x. And here is where you can use your calculator to check your fractions. 3/4 times 4 is 3. Again, I can do this in my head, but if you're not sure how to do your fractions, use that calculator and check. Our last step is we need to add or subtract the number next to y. It's a -4. I need to do the opposite. The 3/4 has an x next to it, so I cannot add it there. So I need to add it to its like term, which is the 3. So y equals 3/4 x plus 7. And so that's our equation, and y equals mx plus b. So again, we need to distribute or multiply the number outside the parentheses times everything inside the parentheses. I'm going to write down the y plus 3. 5 times 1x is 5x. 5 times a -4 is a -20. Now I need to add or subtract the number next to y. It's a +3, so I'm going to subtract it. Y equals 5x. I've got two negative numbers, so it's going to stay negative, and I'm going to add them together. So again, first step is to distribute, which means we need to multiply everything outside the parentheses by what's inside. So y plus 1 equals 1/2 x, because that's an invisible 1 right there. 1/2 of 6 is 3. Now I need to add or subtract the number y. It's a +1, so I'm going to subtract. So y equals 1/2 x plus 2. All right, I want you to work on these next 3 on your own and check them with the completed class notes.